ahead.
Okay. Our mission. Helping Parents Heal is a nonprofit organization dedicated to assisting bereaved parents to become shining light parents by providing support and resources to aid in the healing process. We go a step beyond other groups by allowing the open discussion of spiritual experiences and evidence for the afterlife in a non-dogmatic way. Affiliate groups welcome everyone, regardless of religious or non-religious background, and allow for open dialogue. Attendance today at this meeting is voluntary, and we are here for the benefit of learning from and sharing with other parents whose child has passed away. It is understood that our discussions are intended to be confidential and not designed to replace traditional therapy or spiritual counseling. Helping Parents Heal offers a wide variety of speakers to allow parents to be informed about many possible ways to heal, to connect with their children, and to learn about the afterlife. The views expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect those of Helping Parents Heal, and we ask you take from their presentations whatever may benefit you personally. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much, Irene. And I wanted to, first of all, just say that Paul is kindly coming to us actually from Germany. I thought it was going to be from the UK, and it's very exciting to have him here. He is an internationally renowned psychic medium, and he travels throughout the world speaking to so many different groups. And I feel grateful that we have him here. He has been a spiritualist since 1983. The first spiritualist church he visited was Wolverhampton SNU Church in the West Midlands, England. In his own words, it was like coming home. He recognized that he had found something, but did not know what it was. The lady taking that first service was none other than Paul's own great aunt, Lavinia, whom he had not seen in many years. Not knowing that she was a medium, it came as quite a surprise. A few months later, Lavinia introduced Paul to Longton Church and Gordon Higginson, who you all know through, obviously, we talked about this before, and about Arthur Findlay. Gordon was not just president of the church, but also president of the Spiritualists National Union, principal of the Arthur Findlay College, and one of the finest all-around mediums of the 20th century. From that time on, Gordon became a personal friend and mentor teaching. Paul not only recognized, but also unfolded his latent mediumistic gifts. Paul's first public demonstration came in 1990 after 7 years of intensive development under the guidance of Gordon and Martin Young. For the next 2 years, most of his public work was combined demonstrations with Gordon and Simon James, who was also under Gordon's guidance. 1993 was a very important year for Paul. In this year, he became a tutor at the world-famous Arthur Findlay College. This was a major step forward because for the previous 6 years, he had been organizing courses. Now he had to teach as well. Gordon passed to the world of spirit, and Paul took over as the president of Longton Church. He also gave up his business to become a professional medium, and he is now one of the most renowned mediums in the world. He's also, I know that all of you heard Mavis Spatilla speak, so obviously he is based in London, but he travels all over. He's going to be giving a workshop on September 3rd with Melinda Kushner, who is also here today, and I feel very grateful that she is. She is the person who introduced us to Paul, and it's going to be for 5 hours, starting at 9 Pacific time, 12 Eastern Standard Time. And you can register for that at melindakushner.com. He's also going to be speaking on We Don't Die Radio, actually on the Zoom that Sandra Champlain has been doing with a spirit artist. And that information I know Sandra will be publicizing. But you can learn more about Paul at www.mediumpauljacobs.com. And without further ado, please welcome Paul Jacobs.
Thank you very much for the welcome and the introduction, Elizabeth. And Hello to all of you. I know we're all in different time zones. I've been what I'd like to call myself a spiritual medium or a spiritualist medium for 30 years. If Elizabeth doesn't mind me saying, she introduced me as a psychic medium, okay? And I keep having battles with colleagues and people on Facebook about advertising themselves as psychic mediums, because it's confusing to the public, and particularly those who are searching and are still very new to this and have little knowledge. I keep stressing to people, why not call yourself a psychic and a spiritual medium, or psychic and evidential medium, because they are two different aspects. And we have to realise everybody is psychic. So every single one listening today, with the right development and training, we can, because the word psychic comes from the Greek word soul, we've all got a psychic ability. And many of you who are mothers particularly have used that motherly intuition to know what your children are feeling, or being aware of things without anything being said. And really, the psychic ability is just an extension of that. Then when we look at the mediumistic level, because that is where is being aware on the psychic level of the soul incarnate, somebody who's still physically in the physical world and the physical body. On the mediumistic aspect, because we are all spiritual beings, so we've got to realise we don't have to die to be spirits, we're already spirit. We don't have to die to be in the spirit world, because this is already the spirit world. So the spirit world isn't a million miles away, up in heaven, up in the heavens, in the sky, and hell in the bowels of the earth. This is the spirit world, but maybe the lowest sort of condensed within this physical body. So because we're all spiritual beings, that means we're all enabled to have spiritual experiences. That doesn't mean that everybody can develop it to become a medium in the full sense where they can turn it on like a tap constantly. But I believe if we can really truly become aware of our own soul and the ingredients within our own soul, which is the higher mind, the higher consciousness, which is there within the soul, because mind survives physical death. The spirit world is a world of mind. So we have to communicate with the spirit world through that higher mind within our soul. The base point of that communication is the emotion that's also there within the soul, and then also that divine power, that power of life, that God force, which is the spirit. So if we can become aware and strengthen and activate those three ingredients within our soul, then we can learn to be able to lift those three things onto another level of vibration just beyond those five physical senses. We can blend with the divine power of all life and creation, which runs through all things in life, whether it's you, me, the bird, the flower, or the tree. And in a way, being one with the divine soul.
Oh, darn. I'll be able to pop back on. So why don't we take this time, if that's okay, you have any questions while Paul is coming back on. So to understand what he is also explaining, because sometimes I know he speaks English, but sometimes I don't understand his English. But to understand that we are all psychic, I think is the most important part of who we are and who we get to be when we are growing through life, if that makes any sense. So in other words, all of the difficulties in our life that we have, all of the things that we have to learn to expand on, to understand who we are, understand the pain that we go through in life, understanding why did our loved ones have to go into the spirit world? You know, I always say, please, please don't let your child, any of our loved ones, go into the spirit world without understanding why they're there. It's our growth as well. As painful as it is. I have 4 children. I do not have a child in spirit. So I'm only saying this that I can understand to a point of what all of you go through. But that pain of your child in the spirit world and not understanding why, the whys of everything, is something that you as an individual get to create that greater understanding from your God source. Whoever, whatever your belief system is, remember, it's within the soul of who you are that you get to create and grow into who you can be. Excuse me, with that greater understanding of what we need to learn, what we need to go through, what we need to grasp. And with all of this thought process, we get to then, as Paul will continue to explain to you, we will then be able to connect with our loved ones in spirit. But before we have that strong connection, we want to be able to have that strong connection with our God source. Is he back?
Yes, he's
Oh,
just
perfect.
getting on right now, but I think it's going to take him just a little bit of time to get his microphone going, poor guy. Let me just find where he is so that I can pin him. But go ahead, Melinda. Sorry.
No, that's okay. So you connect with your God source to create that power.
I'm back.
Oh, perfect.
Good. Okay. So this power is the source of life and our creation. It is the spirit that is the reality that can never die. And it's the spirit that is the reality and the physical, the illusion. And if we can develop that power that's within us and connect to the power that's part of the stupendous whole of life and creation, it's a power that can motivate us, direct us, uphold us, and heal us. And even though some people, because of circumstances and often through grief, want to turn against the understanding and use the word God, I know in my grief time, I fell out with God and didn't want to know God, okay? But what I found through understanding and finding this divine power that's within me, that's something divine, call it God, call it what you want, I built a friendship and a relationship. And that power then, through doing this understanding and exercises of this development and change of level of consciousness and awareness, then that power can manifest within our life. I can remember Gordon Higginson saying to me many, many years ago, we was driving in the car and he said to me, Paul, I was telling him how I slept with an axe under my bed. And he said, why on earth do you sleep with an axe under your bed? And I said, well, my home was burgled and I'm scared of it happening again, and especially if I'm at home and I'm asleep in bed, so it's there to protect me. And he said, Paul, you are so silly. He said, don't you realise how well protected you are and nothing untoward will ever happen to you? And I thought, that's nice. I'll cancel all my life insurance and take out extra pension. And then he added to me, and even in your car. Well, he didn't know, I never told him, I always had this fear that I was going to die in a car accident because my father died as a young man in a car accident. My grandmother died in a car accident. I'd got 2 close personal friends who died in car accidents and thought that's the way I was going to go. So that evening when I sat home, I sent my thoughts to the spirit world and I said, you know, that's all very well. That's very nice that I'm well protected, but why me and why not everybody else? Because I'm no more important. I'm no more special than anybody else. And the reply I got back was, we try to do the same for everybody, but we are limited by you as individuals on how you can respond and be moved by our power. So that power is there for every single one of us because we are part of that stupendous whole of that power of life and creation and that supreme loving intelligence that's behind all existence. And I believe if we can find the reality of that, and that is one of the main purposes of mediumship. Yes, we can support and we can help people who are finding their grief difficult, try to bring that understanding and knowledge of the reality and that their loved ones have not gone anywhere. Yes, they've discarded the physical body, but they're the same personality, which might enable them to have a power, because the pain of grief will never go. You all know that. You've all experienced it. You know, there's nothing I can do or anybody to take away that pain of grief. What we can do, or the only way I feel we can deal with that pain of grief and that loss and the missing of that presence of those we care for who've gone before us, is to be able to develop our power of the Spirit and have that connection with that divine power and source of life, which will give us a strength and a power that can overcome that pain of grief, and being able to bring that knowledge and understanding to people that the Spirit, you know, is eternal. And it's very difficult for our conscious minds, even those of us who've had evidence and accept the Spirit is reality and that our loved ones are still alive and well. But it's difficult for our conscious minds to accept the concept of eternity. And if you think our earthly living experience in this physical world is only like a grain of sand in the desert to our total experience and existence. If we could grasp that concept, yes, the earthly years we have left here without that physical presence, yes, there'll still be that pain, there'll still be that missing, but it will be able to give us a strength of a power to deal with that pain and that absence of those we love and those we miss. And I also wonder, because often people think, you know, the spirit world, because it's beyond the physical senses, we can't touch it physically. I want to make quite clear, the spirit world isn't all floaty. The spirit world is as real and solid to your loved ones as this one is to you and me. And I know that for a fact, not because I've read it in a book, not because anybody's told me about it. I've actually experienced traveling and going through the experience of death and moving into the spirit world and experiencing it. And I'll tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, maybe I shouldn't say this. The experience was so wonderful, I didn't want to come back. I wanted to stay there, okay? And you know, in that world and that existence, our loved ones can continue from the moment where they left this physical world behind. They can still fulfill that which they desired and wanted to fulfill within this world. So those of you who are disappointed that maybe your children still didn't fulfill and manifest their potentials in this physical world, it's not been the end of those things for them. They can still continue. And I know that for a fact. Over the years, in my early years, before I became a teacher, most of my work was working in demonstrating medium and private sittings. And I worked for two organisations. One was in Turin, in Italy, set up by a Catholic priest for parents who'd lost children. Then I worked for a lady in Germany, and it was called Spiritual Help Service. And she had 6,000 parents, members of the organisation, and she set up the organisation for parents after she lost her own son, and she had her first wonderful experience with the medium that gave her that connection with her son from the spirit world, and wanted to help other parents who'd been in the same position. And one of the things I found often that the children love to bring was what they're now doing in the spirit world. And it wasn't just me making something up to make the parents feel happy. The children would tell me what they enjoyed when they were here, what their talents were, and would show me that they were continuing to manifest and experience and enjoy those things within the spirit world. So, you know, I know it's hard for us to accept that fully concept, And I often say to people, you know, I can give you all the information, the most wonderful evidence you could possibly wish for, but it wouldn't do the same or have the same effect if you could feel what I feel from your loved ones in the spirit world. It'd be worth far more than any piece of information I could possibly give you. So I believe very much it is possible, not that we can have a tap to turn on, to have constant verbal conversation with those we're missing from our own family, but I do believe we can enable, if we do that development, to be able to feel their presence, to feel and have a blending with them, to feel their love, to feel their joy, to feel that emotion from them, and us feel theirs and they feel ours. And you know, that feeling is something absolutely wonderful, and that is possible to all of us because we're all spiritual beings. And you know,
Oh
Maybe,
dear.
I know, maybe the spiritual beings made him stop talking.
Yes.
It's like, that's up. No.
So you can take over from here if you'd like, Melinda, again.
I know, until he can come back again. And I hope that you understand, everybody, I hope that you understand what he's talking about, because you have the ability to connect to your God source. And again, like what Paul was saying, his anger toward what who he believed in to be God, and why his life had turned and changed. But honestly, it's understanding our own growth, and connecting with your God source creates such an incredible amount of power inside of yourself, recognizing what God has that, and I just say God, but how God has that ability to give you the power of your greater understanding of who you are and who you can be and what you can achieve. Because there's so many times that we let life smack us down and we just feel like we can't even get up the next day or the next week or the next month. And you have to honor your grief. You have to honor, and I know I've said this before, to my apologies if I've shared this with other people, but it's honoring that grief. It's recognizing that no matter how long it takes, no matter what it is you have to do to get through that grief, to create that beautiful power within inside of you that makes you and gives you that opportunity to move forward, to create the best person that you can be. And I know that, you know, I'm the closest person I can say that I have in spirit is my mom. And I always wanted to be able to connect with my mom all the time. And, you know, she smacked me down quite a few times of not communicating with me. You know, you think, oh, you're a medium, you can communicate all the time. No, we have these same experiences, the same understanding that we don't get to connect to the spirit world and our loved ones on a regular basis. And is Paul back on yet? No.
He's just
coming
entered
back.
the waiting room. Yes, he's back. So
Okay.
I just need to find him again. This is
Okay.
all so exciting. It's kind of like hide and seek because
It's like Finding Waldo.
Yes, exactly. But I know he's here, so let me see, because that poor guy, he's muted too. So I don't see. Oh, there he is. Found you. Okay. Can you hear me, Paul?
I can now, yes, that's good. That's
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I keep going kicked
No
out.
worries. That Belinda's doing a great job.
So I know many who have started doing that journey to want that personal communication with their children and their family and their loved ones, who have then moved on to where they have actually become mediums in their own right, then to be able to use to help and support other people. And there's many ways. I've met some wonderful parents who've used their experience of the death of a son, a physical death of a son and daughter, to create and do something wonderful for other people in this life and the world. One lady I became friends with, she actually, when I first met her and helped her, she offered me so many £1,000. She was a wealthy lady, and she offered me so many £1,000 a week to live with her, so she could have a medium constantly there to communicate with the son. Of course, I couldn't accept, but I did befriend her and we became good friends. And she was quite a wealthy lady. And then, so what she did, she opened a spiritual centre in her son's name, which I helped establish and start. So, you know, I remember another lady who I helped. She didn't like the way the police came to tell her that her son had been killed in a car accident. She thought it was awful the way they approached her with it. So she started going around the country lecturing to police forces how to deal with breaking the news and speaking to parents when they have to take that news. Another lady I know, her son passed with where they're fully healthy children, but there's just no cause, and they just suddenly die with a heart problem, and there's no reason for it. So she set up an organisation and a charity to organise to help do research into this and help parents in the same sort of situation. And then I've seen parents who I've not been able to help. They have not been able to move themselves over that pain of grief. Not get rid of the pain or that emptiness, because that will always be there, but a power that's strong enough to overcome and keep living, and then destroy their own life and the physical life and their existence, have nothing from this. I had a very close personal friend whose son committed suicide, and she just, it doesn't matter how much I did, how much of a friend I was to her, I just couldn't see her through it. So I tried to be a support and strength as much as I can. We kept her going for as long as we could. So, you know, there's no magic thing a medium can promise to anybody, you know. It's being able to hopefully touch your soul, give you inspiration, give you an understanding and a search to find that power and reality of the spirit that can manifest, so it can give you again maybe a reason to continue with your life, and life still give you something, and still be able to have that knowledge that even though it may 50 years before you go and join your child, which seems a long, long time ago, it's only a blink of a second in eternity. And always remember, and I know for a fact, all those years that you've missed of that physical presence of sharing, you haven't lost at all, because you'll have the opportunity to relive and be able to experience all that. And what we've got to remember is the spirit itself actually has no shape or form. The spirit is this divine power of life. And within us, there's that God particle, call it what you want. And if we can activate that power and draw and allow it to be part of our life. So when we physically die, what we actually have an etheric body, which is a replica of the physical body, but just in a lighter form, without illness, disease, and aging. And the world that we will reside in from this one, we call the etheric world, which is a replica of this world, but a little bit finer. So when we go to that etheric world, I think it's really a place of adjustment, and we can stay there as long as we want, because we've got eternity. So in that world there, if we still have the need to go through the physical actions like we do here. The spirit world showed me, for an example, this fruit tree I've never seen before on the earth. And I went to touch the fruit and pick the fruit. And they said, Paul, if that's what you wish to do and you wish to go through the action, then do so. But there's no need. You can absorb the texture, the taste, and the smell by absorbing it with your mind. But if you've got the need for those physical actions, then so be it, you can. And many people, when they first move to the spirit world, and maybe for a long time, will still want to go through a physical action of doing things. And that's fine. So those who have gone to the spirit world, who have not done all the physical things they wanted to manifest here, they've still got that opportunity within the realms of the spirits. Okay. And what I want to be make quite clear about, doesn't matter how many years go by, I want to make it quite clear, because we hear some terrible things said from mediums times, okay, where that they couldn't communicate with your child because your child's reincarnated. That's a load of rubbish. They haven't. Okay, there's no way, even if you believe in reincarnation, there's no way your loved ones in the spirit world would reincarnate back to this physical world until they've had the reunion back with you, with those people where there's that bond of love. Then people speak about the different levels, because as they evolve spiritually, and you know, your children are not going to have moved to a level that you're never going to be able to see them again. Okay, so even if they have evolved so quickly to a very high level, and that's fine, you couldn't go to that level because you wouldn't be spiritually ready. So you can't go up a level that you're not ready for, but you can come back down a level. So there's still no problem, even if they have evolved so much, that you still can't have that reunion and time together. Okay, so and then through our involvement, we finally discard the etheric body, which can, there's no time limit, and then finally these bodies, lighter bodies, become more subtle and subtle until we become purely soul, the vehicle of the soul, still with that individuality and identity. Okay, so you know, it's a wonderful thing, and the spirit world gave me a wonderful experience, and this is why I speak with conviction at times. The spirit world, one day I was sitting, speaking, sending thoughts to my father. My father died as a young man in a car accident, and one day I was just sitting at home thinking, Dad, what was it like for you to die the way you did? Where are you now? What are you doing? And the spirit world actually took me through the experience of his death. And that's why I even teach death itself is painless. Okay, there may be something leading up to the circumstances, but death itself is painless. And also, even though their conscious mind might be aware they're going to die, their spirit knows, and the spirit moves out of the body just moments before physical death takes place. It's still attached. And even if it's been in accident situation, because that's what the spirit world took me through, and the spirit just moving out in those moments before the physical death took place. And so that gave me great comfort and understanding. And when I shared my experience, and then it was just like how people explain these near-death experiences, I went down this tunnel of light, and as I then came into this beautiful light and I adjusted to the light, I could see my father standing there as clear as day. And the feeling was just unbelievable. And then I heard this voice say to me, "Come with us." And I said, "I don't want to go."
Oh dear. Melinda, you might have to take
I can't finish that story, so to speak, but I also want to be able to talk about, you know, when we have our loved ones that take themselves into the spirit world. I know that there's always that fear. What happens to those little souls when they go into the spirit world? And it's so important to remember that they're greeted in spirit with so much love and understanding. There is not a soul that goes into the spirit world that our God source, our loved ones, our guides are not there to help us reach the potential that we can when we get into the spirit. It's comfort, it's love, it's understanding, especially for those that have crossed themselves over. Because, you know, when you're in that thought process where you feel so desperate and you don't know what to do with life, and you cross yourself into the spirit world, just again know that the spirit world understands. They embrace you at every level possible to make you feel that comfort and understanding. There's no punishment in the spirit world. There is nothing, again, but love and understanding. And you know how we talk about having free will here? We also have free will into the spirit world that will teach us that we get to grow, we get to understand, we get to make that connection and love again with our God source. It's not the easiest sometimes to understand why we're here, because remember, we have our physical thought processes while we're here. So it gives us a difficult time to comprehend what happens when you go into the spirit world, right? We think that, oh my goodness, especially with some religious beliefs out there where you are condemned. And if you cross yourself into the spirit world, there is no condemning. There is nothing like that at all, ever. And you know, it takes me to the thought process where, I don't know if any of you've watched those, I think they're horrible shows on television that create the fearfulness of what happens to your soul when you die, or Elizabeth, please just let me know and I'll stop talking as soon as he comes back.
He's here, but I'm
Okay.
looking for him right now, and poor
Okay.
guy has to allow me to find. There he is. Got him. Okay. Hopefully.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
So we're sitting on pins and needles about
Good,
this story.
okay. So they actually took me to a level of spiritual consciousness that my father couldn't reach. He hadn't evolved spiritually enough. And it was the most amazing experience I've ever had. And actually, if I look at all the contacts and evidence I've given to people, if I look at all the contacts and evidence mediums have given me, people, if they want, can pull it all apart, they can destroy it if they want, but nobody could ever destroy and take my 110% conviction from those experiences of traveling into the spirit world, of that reality, which leaves me with no doubt and uncertainty. So what I would like to say to all of you, okay, so if you can do the proper journey of discovery with a joy if possible, because Gordon Higginson said to me, if you cannot do it with joy, then call it a day. It's got to be a journey of joy and discovery, not what you can be, what can I do with it? And if you can do the proper foundation, then yes, all of you won't become mediums in the so-called sense, but we'll all be able to develop to a degree of having certain spiritual experiences, because we're all spirit now and we're all in the spirit world now.
Hey, Paul, can I ask you a question, please? I know that a lot of people a lot of parents are very concerned when their children cross themselves into the spirit world, and if they get stuck, or if they're stuck, if they had any type of addictions. Can you please explain that?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. Okay. You know, even the Catholic Church now have got rid of limbo. So it used to be that you know, people supposed to have committed suicide were in this void or this limbo. Not at all. Okay, I've communicated with many people who and children who young adults who've committed suicide. And I've got to say, this might be wrong of me to say, I don't know, okay. There are some people who commit suicide, okay, we can't say that in one aspect by earthly measurement suicide is right to do, but there are times when I've given communication from youngsters in the spirit world who have taken their own life, and I've actually had to say it's a better place for them, because they would have never found that peace within the soul that they were looking for, that they can now find within the spirit, the spirit world. So there is nobody there judging them. There's nobody there punishing them. They might still have to look at and deal with the causes that made them take that action. And also what I'd like to point out, I can't prove this to anybody here and now, I found in a number of cases in the communication with youngsters who've taken suicide, it's as if like they haven't always deliberately meant to do it. They've pushed themselves to the edge. Shall I or shan't I? I can give you an example. A young man I actually know, a nephew of a friend of mine, and he jumped off a railway bridge onto the railway track under a train. And when he came and communicated, he showed me and explained to me, he sat there contemplating the idea, pushed himself to the limit, but too far, and it was too late for him to change his mind. And you'll find that happens in quite a lot of cases. Not all, but that does happen in a lot of cases. Also, one of the difficult things when doing sittings, with people who've got sons and daughters in the spirit world, I had one not a couple of years ago, and the son came, and yes, it wasn't good circumstances he passed in, okay, and he wanted to come with all positiveness about himself and his life. And his mother didn't want to listen. All she wanted to listen to was the negativity and who she could blame for his death. Which, don't get me wrong, I can understand that, and I can understand the anger of it. But she couldn't allow me, I just couldn't do the sitting because the son just didn't want to go down that track. He was wanting to bring something beautiful. He wanted to bring some positive about his new existence and whatever. But the mum didn't want to listen.
Could I say something, Paul,
Yeah.
that I feel kind of follows a pattern with all of these parents who have children who have graduated because they have taken their lives, or maybe by overdose or anything like that. I truly believe in a soul plan, and I believe that if it didn't happen that way, it would have happened a different way, and that there are exit points. And so I think that, you know, if this gentleman was thinking about jumping off the bridge and then actually went through with it, if that had not happened, he might have passed in a car accident a week later. And I have seen this happen in so many different parents in Helping Parents Heal, where one child might have taken their life by suicide, and then every single child that was a friend of his passed in a car accident the week after, or vice versa. And so I think that it's important for all of the parents to understand that there's no mistakes. There's nothing that has happened that anybody could do anything about, because this was destined to happen. And I don't know how you feel about that. Is that?
I agree to a point, but my difficulty with it fully, okay, then for me, it wouldn't be a loving God if God destined that you as a parent are going to lose your child at a young age. For me, that's not a loving God if that was the destiny of that child to happen, okay? And this is what I'm speaking to you about, is that the spirit world, okay, and then through a medium, we can be aware of events that are going to happen for the future, okay? But that doesn't mean it's destined to happen, okay? And that's what I was speaking about in the beginning, all right? About when Gordon said to me, nothing untoward would happen to me because I was so well protected. And the spirit world said, when I asked them about it, and I said, not everybody else, they said, we try to do the same for everybody. But if your spirit and your power can't respond to our influence, then we're limited to how we can help you. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll share my personal experience, which will help with this. Okay, so like I say, with my father, he bought this new car, and he'd only had it 3 weeks, and he kept saying to my mother and to myself, I don't know, this car feels unlucky. I think I'm going to get rid of it. I said, you just bought it, stop it. Okay. on the day of his physical death, I was leaving to England to live in Holland. And some friends dropped me off at the airport, and we got to the airport, and I sat there in the car, and they said, Paul, come on, get out of the car. I said, no, I can't go. I've got to go home. They said, and don't forget, these days I wasn't a medium, or no, I was a medium. There's something wrong. I need to be home. I need to be with my family. And I said, Paul, don't silly. You got your tickets, you've got a job starting, you've got to go. So I went. Next day, phone call, the father had been killed in a car accident. But also what happened was, that evening, my father was going out because he was an athlete and was going to be running in the Olympics. And him and his friends who had been chosen were going out to celebrate. So my father decided to be the driver because he wasn't really a drinker. And he went to me to pick his friends up. And he came back and said to my mother, I'm not going. It's not right. I should stay at home. And my mother said, don't be silly. Oh, I've lost you.
Oh no. Oh gosh, I want to hear this.
I know, I was gonna say he keeps bopping out of the good time.
At the important things. Okay.
I know.
Maybe you can,
No.
you can follow up with that.
Well, that's his experience, but we want to go back to talking about maybe the crossing yourself over into spirit. I think a lot of times people are so feeling that when your child or a loved one crosses themselves over into the spirit world, that it's out of maybe punishment, Elizabeth, or what do you think, Elizabeth? How do you view that? Do you feel the parents just think that this is supposed to happen and God's terrible and they made this happen? Do you feel that way, that people think that?
I don't think that they think that it's a punishment. And I don't think that a lot of people in our group believe that there is any type of punishment on the other side. I think that everyone understands that everyone is created exactly the same. And sometimes it has to do with a chemical imbalance. Sometimes it has to do with the fact that they were just contemplating it, but then it happened. But it's so interesting when he's talking about this, when Paul's talking about this, I guess that the reason that I feel so strongly about the way that I feel is that I have seen different instances where there's a child who was supposed to go to a bowl game with all of his friends, and he has a nightmare that the car is going to roll and all of them are going to pass. So he decides not to go, and he tells everybody else not to. They roll, they all pass. But then it turns out that 3 months later, he takes his own life. So, and then the inverse is also the case. So I so deeply and strongly feel that these are all something that was going to happen, that our kids are such evolved souls and that they have pretty much done everything that they need to here. And we're still here because we have a lot to learn.
I have a lot to learn. I agree. And
they are home. And so every single one of them is happy, healthy, and whole. But I'd love to hear, Paul is coming back in. I'd love to hear what he has to say because I always love hearing. So let's see if I can find him first. Okay, Paul. Oh, there you are. Okay, can you hear me?
I can, yes. Good. You got me. Yeah. I can't remember what point I was at when you lost me. When I lost you.
You were talking about the car. You were talking about your father.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
about his,
Do I speak about? He went out on the journey.
yes.
To pick his friends up, and he came home. She turned around and came home and said to my mother, "I'm not going. I've got to stay home with you." And my mum says, "Don't be silly. You know, you're going to celebrate with your friends. Go and do it." Okay. My mother regretted saying that to him for the rest of her life. Okay. But was it the spirits trying to influence him not to go, to stop him from having that accident? That's what I'm trying to say. And those of you who've done any research into spiritualism and the history of it, there's a gentleman called Andrew Jackson Davis from America. He was the father, he's known as the father of modern day spiritualism, a great prophet and a great seer. And he wrote much about what he called the spirit world, calling it the Summerlands. And I was having discussions with my colleagues at the Arthur Findlay College where I was probably fighting a losing battle with them, because they very much were all speaking about everything is preordained and destiny in life. And I said, I can't agree with you totally on it. I said, if that's the case, I may as well have no individuality, and I may as well just be a robot and a machine. If you understand the philosophy, the soul comes to the earth to journey, and through the individuality of the soul, develop and express the spirit within. So when I got home that evening, I keep his book actually next to my bed. It's in old English, you can't read it page to page, and I use it like a little bit like a Bible, and I just opened it up at random, and the title on the page was Free Will and Destiny. I thought, wow. And I just read one small paragraph and it summed it up for me. And it said, free will belongs to the physical and destiny to the spirit. So I believe there's many things, many actions in the physical world that are totally our free will. But I do believe, though, there are certain things that physically will happen in our life if it's part of our destiny to fulfill. That makes sense? Yeah, good.
Yeah.
So I'm quite happy now if any of your people would like to talk to me or would like to ask anything.
Yes, we do have questions. One is that Miss Johnny is asking about, you talked about the spiritual plane, and she's wondering if it has to do with the astral plane. I think that she saw you speaking just recently on a YouTube video.
Okay.
What's the difference between the two, the spiritual and the astral plane?
No, so you see, what we've got to realise is, again, because we live in this physical world by measurement, everybody wants everything in physical measurements, okay? So, you know, even when we speak about, you often hear in spiritualism or mediums or spiritualists, they speak about two worlds, bringing two worlds together. And I say, you're talking a load of rubbish. There's not two worlds. There's only one world. But that's not quite right. It's just world within worlds, and there's no dividing line between them, okay? So if we look at the next stage, some people call it the astral, some call it the etheric, I call it the etheric, okay? So even in the dimension of the etheric, there will be many levels of existence, okay? So there will be some parts of the etheric world that might not be quite so pleasant. Those who've lived very empty, dark, barren lives, their spirit world, their place of existence would be dark, barren and empty with the same type of people. If your life has been fruitful and expressive in a positive way, then that's the sort of people you will be and the conditions you create. But it's not a dividing line, it's just movements of spiritual consciousness. Understand, okay? But in the etheric world, there will be actually the physical manifestation of it. When we move beyond those different lighter worlds, we then move into a world where there's not physical shape or form of a place, or physical shape or form of us as individuals, but we're still individuals and still got individuality, because we're soul, but in the soul, we've still got mind and the power of the spirit, the divine essence, and the emotion of the experience and memories we've expressed in this earthly journey. So I hope that answers the question okay.
That's beautiful. And Lindsay is raising her hand. Could you maybe type your question in the chat box? I have another question in here as well. And let's see. Lots of people are just saying that they really appreciate everything that you're saying. One person is expressing the fact that she feels that reincarnations scare her. Could you maybe talk a little bit more about reincarnation?
Yes, certainly. In spiritualism, we don't teach reincarnation as a fact, because as in spiritualism and through mediumship, we only supposed to teach as fact what we can give evidence of. Okay, and as mediums, we can't give evidence of reincarnation. All right, doesn't mean we can't discuss, and explore the subject. Okay, and again, everybody wants one divine answer to everything, and anything spiritual. There's never just one answer. There's many possibilities. There's more than one aspect to everything. So, as a personal individual, I do believe in the possibility of reincarnation. But my understanding at the moment says that does not happen quickly. All right, you're not going to come back, reincarnate next year. It may not even be 50 years or 100 years. I believe also, if reincarnation is a reality, it is then by choice. Okay, because if we look at the teachings of spiritualism, it speaks about, in its principles, about eternal progression open to every human soul. And to progress, we don't have to come back to the earth. It is only if that soul has a desire that they feel they need to come back to fulfill something they didn't, but that would be by choice. I do believe there's what we call old souls that come to benefit this world and have a great influence in this world, who make a sacrifice and a choice to come back and manifest to this world, but that's only the few odd people, okay? But then when I started discussing and questioning this, because I actually quite enjoy speaking about the subject. In the beginning, when people used to ask me, I used to say, what about it? I couldn't care less about it. I'm more worried about living this life rather than worrying what I was in the last part of life and what I'm going to be in my next one. But I found that the subject became more interesting to me. So then I started questioning about, well, people keep speaking about group souls. They keep speaking about new souls. They keep speaking about old souls. So I started thinking about it. Now, I can't prove this as fact. I'm a very quite logical person and things have to make common sense. So I thought, well, so if the population keeps increasing, then there's got to be new souls keep being created. So where do all those new souls come from to manifest in the increasing population on the earth? And so then, and I thought, well, what is an old soul, or is reincarnation really a soul in its total being manifesting back on the earth? So how I looked at it, okay, so if you look at the human physical body, it's made up of one cell, yeah? That's how the physical form begins. And then that cell splits and divides and multiplies into two cells, then again, then again. So I thought, maybe when a soul has experienced so much, does that soul split and divide into two souls, and again, creating a group family soul, and that's where new souls are created from, okay? And because it's that same, I'm sorry.
Oh dear, darn it. And there's so many questions now. We are almost, time is up right now. But at the same time, I was going to ask Paul if he was able to answer some questions. The one from Lindsay that she was wanting to ask is if her son knew that he was being murdered. And maybe you could take that, Melinda, for us, and then maybe just have a few more minutes to answer a few of these other questions.
Right.
Back on.
Right. Listen, that's a very personal, through a mediumship read. I believe the soul recognizes when they're going to, or they have the inkling when they know they're going to be going into the spirit world. Did he know that he was going to be murdered? I can't answer that without actually connecting with the spirit world. I do believe that Again, our soul knows that you probably can all look back over your lives and remember maybe what your loved one said prior to passing, or things, events happening prior to their passing that made you say, oh gosh, I bet they kind of knew something. So I can't say murdered in particular, but maybe knowing that they're going to be going into the spirit world is another thought.
That sounds beautiful. And then there are just a few others that I know that you could help with. Carol is asking, and this kind of feeds into what Paul was saying, why would my son tell a medium he is an old soul if there is no reincarnation? So Paul kind of went into that, about the fact that there are old souls and then there's reincarnation, and that we don't have to keep coming back, but sometimes old souls want to be able to better Earth. Is that how you feel as well, Melinda?
That is how I feel as well, because I think that there are times in our lives that we make that choice when we come back here to help others get that greater understanding as to what happens. Because if we don't have the knowledge with the people that have been from the spirit world back to here, sometimes how do we know how to grow? How do we know how to have that greater understanding? So, and I don't mean to be disrespectful by any means, but sometimes we have to be extremely skeptical as to what some mediums also tell us. Okay, and that's the honest truth. I'm very, very skeptical for what they share with you from the spirit world.
Okay, wonderful. And Paul is back on, so let me try to find him really quickly. And then also, I just want, there's another question right here, and I think it's fascinating. Iris is saying, how come some say you can speak to your loved one anytime, and others say, like you just did, as Paul did, they don't speak to us every time? I guess that maybe, let's see if I can find Paul before we try to answer that question. I'm sorry, Paul, you seem to pop up in different places each time you come back, which makes everything very exciting. But I know you're here. Oh, here he is. I'm trying to unmute. There we go. Can you unmute? Are you with us?
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay, I was just saying that our time is almost up, and I was seeing if maybe we could take just a few questions. And I guess that Iris is asking about the communication, that we can speak to them, and why they don't speak to us every time.
Okay. All right, okay. So yes, they can always hear your thoughts and your feelings, yeah? Okay, so that's not a problem, them hearing us, but what we've got to realise is it's, it's a faculty, all right? And, that degree of that faculty and the development of it will vary in its degrees. So it's not always possible for us to receive a response. And I'm going to be truthful, which might upset one or two people, okay? Mediumship was never meant to be developed purely for your own personal use and contact with your loved ones, okay? I will be aware of my loved ones, but I can't, even though I'm a very experienced medium, been doing it for 30 years, I cannot just turn the tap on to hear and see my people. It doesn't work like that. And any medium that teaches you that, or promise you courses that can do that, then I'd run a mile. I really would, okay? What we can do is we can develop that awareness and that power and that blending so you can feel them. You can experience their closeness, as I said earlier. And I think it's better without trying. If you just go for that, then on occasions, then while you're doing that blending, they may be able to show you something. You might be able to hear a word or a sentence, but I think I would be not being truthful, honest, sincere, and I would be leading people up the garden path if I honestly said you can develop it to have a constant switch and get your spirit people and loved ones be able to communicate you visually and orderly whenever you want it. And I think it'd be wrong if any medium ever promised you that.
but working towards being able to communicate better is always a wonderful thing,
Yeah.
and especially being
Yeah.
able to just
Yeah.
sense our kids and know that they're okay.
And that's what I'm saying, and that's what I'd like to do. There's no reason why, and it's not wrong to look to develop, to be able to sense them there, to feel them, and to have that exchange of your feelings with each other, okay? And occasionally they maybe bring the vision, or they might be able to hear that word, or a smell, or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is that some people are making it out that there's this switch we can switch on and show you how to switch this on, where you can have constant verbal and visual conversation whenever you want. And that's not being truthful and honest. And if any medium does promise that, then I'm sorry, they're not being truthful and honest with it, you know. And also, what I do with my people is that when I don't sit there deliberately trying to make contact with them, okay, or have an answer to something, even though I want answers sometimes, yeah. So what I'll do, I'll just sit and put it out to them, okay, and then I'm not sitting there waiting for that answer to come back. I just leave it with them, and then I find the answer comes when I'm not expecting it. I might be at the sink doing the washing up, and it's the vision or the word suddenly comes the answer. Yeah, because the trouble is when you're sitting consciously wanting and waiting for that answer, it's very, very difficult because it's on a subjective level. Are we creating that answer back with our own mind? So that's why I think it's more real to feel them and experience them in that way. Put out what you want to ask them, and then allow them naturally, when you're not trying for it, to be able to manifest those things you're asking into your consciousness. That's my personal view anyway. I know someone
Well, that's beautiful. So tell me, we have a lot of people, we're kind of running out of time, but we have a lot of people who are saying that they'd like to be able to maybe make an appointment with you, and they're looking on your website. Do you have appointments? Do you still do readings, or is it something that you mostly just do classes?
Now I mainly teach now. It's only on the very odd occasion. I mean, my agenda's booked 2 years in advance. You know, through something like this, a lady whose daughter only passed 3 months ago was absolutely desperate, so from South Africa. So I did find time to see her, but I couldn't do it on a continue. You know, I do have people who I've trained. I could, if they're looking for recommendation for people, I'm always willing to recommend somebody, you know, okay, if they wish that, you know.
And Melinda has time, I would think. She's you're obviously her mentor, so
yes, Melinda's available for
she might be available to help as well, and she's absolutely wonderful, and she's helped a lot of parents of helping parents heal, and hopefully we'll be able to have Melinda back to speak to the group as well sometime soon on her own. But I truly appreciate this, Paul. Thank you so much for coming. And I know it's been hard.
I'm prepared to do one of the times when we can find dates, okay? If you want, I'm prepared to do a public demonstration for your people, if you wish.
That would be wonderful. And I'm sure that everyone who's on here would just be so thrilled to be able to see you do that. So yes, lots of people are clapping their hands right now. So if that's a possibility, then let's try to find a time. I know you're very, very busy, but sometime in the near future that we could do that. And in any case, before we ever say goodbye, we always make sure that people are allowed to unmute themselves and to be able to say goodbye and thank you to you. Do you have any closing words before they do, though?
Myself, okay. Just please remember, you know, I know it's hard for the conscious mind to mention, but those we love who've gone on before us have gone nowhere. They're nearer than our hands and feet and closer than our breathing.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you, Melinda, for filling in for Paul in certain spaces.
I hope it's not spoiled it for people.
No, it was wonderful.
Spoiled it. I got to talk, Paul.
Yeah, because normally when I start, you can't shut me up. Nobody else gets a chance to get a word in when I start.
That's true.
Well, so please unmute yourselves and please say goodbye and thank you. And
God bless everyone.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A wonderful rest of the
Thank
day.
you, Bob. Thank you, Bill.
We have speakers throughout the week, so
Thank you.
please join us. And thank you both, Melinda and Paul.